Hey everybody, Corey here, coming at you with another knife review. Today we are taking a look at the Vero Synapse XL. If you're new around here, consider subscribing. I try to put out new knife-related content on a regular basis. Now, as always, let's start with our size comparisons. So this is called the Synapse XL, so you know what that means. She's a big girl. Here it is next to the Ontario Rat Knives number 2, Ontario Rat number 2, yeah, whatever, the small one. Here it is next to the off-grid knife Scorpion, and even though it's kind of hard to see under a camera, it is actually a hair longer in overall length than my conventionally large knife, the off-grid knife Scorpion. Next up, take a look at it next to the PM2. Of course it's bigger than the PM2. Come on, guys. Next up, we're going to take a look at it next to the ProTech Knives Malibu, another knife that lots of people seem to have or lots of people seem to want, so there you go. And then last but not least, here it is next to the Chris Reeve Knives Large Sebenza. Interesting enough, you know, these knives are kind of close to each other in price. Sebenzas start at about $450 or $475 these days, and the Synapse XL, depending on what you get it, you know, what form you get it in, it can come $350 to like $400. So without further ado, let's start talking about this knife. So, as a user, it is called the XL, right? So when we talk about like carrying and stuff, I mean, she chonky, right? This is going to take up space in your pocket, and that's all there is to it. At the end of the day, you know, typically, I've got some beef with knives that have relatively thick blade stock, and I do believe this is either 0.15 or 0.16 inches thick. Either way, she thick, right? But that being said, this actually has a really tall grind. This knife is infinitely slicier than you would expect a knife this size to be. So that is something that surprised me. From an ergonomics perspective, this thing, the cutout, whenever they have a cutout for fingers, it always leaves me feeling kind of cold, right? Because it's the kind of thing where it's either gonna work for you or it's not gonna work for you. Now, this knife has some options, right? This flat portion up here, if you really wanted to, you could choke up on the flat portion. Not my cup of tea, but you could. You know, for me, I have medium-sized hands. This fits me very well. That being said, if my hands were any smaller, I might be, you know, getting squished in here and my ring finger might be hitting this bump right here. If my hands were any bigger, you know, the sausage fingers might be filling out this little gap and you might be pressing up both sides of it. I don't know. Again, for me, I like it because it fits me, but it's the kind of thing that you need to be aware of if you have especially large or especially small hands. The next thing, from an ergonomics perspective, I would recommend you get a version with micarta so that you can do what I did. If you look at the edges of this micarta, you'll see that it's rounded off. I did that with a diamond file. It only took me about 10 minutes to go around the entire knife and just get those edges off. But for me, the micarta came to just a 90-degree angle at all of its edges. And when you held this thing in your hand, boy, you really felt it. You know, I don't want to be too dramatic about it. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but you knew it was there. All the way down the knife, you felt it pressing into your hand. You know, for me, I think they could really benefit from just doing this from the factory. But, you know, for you, it's the kind of thing, if you want it, you can do it in, you know, 10 minutes, like I said. Other than that, you know, from an ergo's perspective, the jimping, it's the nice kind of jimping, right? Not so aggressive that it hurts, but it's aggressive enough to where it's actually functional jimping and it's not just there to look like nothing. The sharpening choil is good. The blade shape is good. The blade grind is awesome. Pocket clip, not deep carry, right? Not deep carry, but you've only got, what, that much sticking out of your pocket, right? You know, if you're obsessed with deep carry, then I guess move on right now because this clearly isn't for you. But yeah, for me as a user, this one is actually awesome, to be quite honest. Now, you wouldn't know that looking at it, and you know, well, we'll talk about this at the end. But yeah, mine clearly hasn't been used. Is that a scratch or is that a hair? Cool, it was a hair. Great. Now, let's talk about this as a fidgeter. So you've got two methods of deployment. You've got this flipper tab right here, and then if you weren't paying attention, you've got it's not a fuller, it's an actual cutout back there, which is specifically placed so that you can flick it if you want. You can do the middle finger flick, you can do the index finger flick, and if you want, I don't know why I don't see a lot of people doing this, but it's really comfortable for me to kind of like reverse flip it with my thumb over the back. It's got a really good action. It's very smooth, and most people's do drop shut. We'll talk about that at the very end of the video, but either way, mine's still very smooth, and if you actually just wanted to play with this all day long, you can definitely just open it and close it and blah, blah, blah. So as a fidgeter, I'd say this one's good to go, unless it's missing something that you love. You know, if you need a Spidey hole, or if you need a thumb stud, or if you need a front flipper, hi, it's not for you. Oh, you know what? While we're here, though, this is a weird one. This is clearly not a front flipper, right? But watch this. You can actually get enough traction on this jimping to where you can front flip it. Look, I'm not saying they designed it to do that, and I'm pretty sure they specifically did not design it to do that. But yeah, I guess you can technically front flip it. It's definitely not comfortable, and it's not as satisfying as a knife that's designed for it, but you can do it. So there's that. As a collector, well, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Depends on why you collect things. If you like to collect knives that are hard to get, ding, 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 this is going to be great for you. They do literally maybe sometimes one run of these a year. And don't quote me. I don't want to put false numbers out there, but I can tell you, these sold out. The drop for these last year sold out. It had to have been a minute. They had to have been instantly gone. I mean, I was refreshing the web page on these the second they dropped. And in the time that it took me to get from adding it to my cart to trying to pay for it, it said it was already gone. And I ended up with it. Well, thankfully I got one of the versions that I wanted, but I wanted Stonewash and I got the hand rub set in here. But yeah, if you like rare knives, I mean, this is about as rare as they get because they just don't make enough of them, which, you know, it is what it is. But that being said, you know, it's a very cool piece to have in your collection. Again, specifically as a collector, there aren't many knives, if any at all, that I can think of that have this profile. There's nothing else that looks like this. There's nothing else that fits this exact category. So if it's something that you're into and you're drawn to it, pick it up. I think you're going to like it, right? I mean, you already know, right? If you're a collector, you can take a look at this and you're like, yep, that's for me, or no, it's not. You know, getting a hold of one, I'll tell you right now, on the secondary, you're not going to get a deal. These pretty much sell for retail no matter what. So, you know, keep an eye out, but, you know, good luck from that perspective. As a nerd, I struggled with this one a little bit, but there's a caveat here, okay? So in my as a nerd section, I kind of, you know, take a deeper look at the knife, and I look at the small details, and I think, you know, primarily fit and finish, right? When we look at things like this, right, where the micarta meets the titanium, flawless, beautiful, wonderful. It's just absolutely awesome, right? Okay. But for me, mine is off center. You can see that it favors the clip side, you know, just a hair, but it does. But the main problem that I have, I don't know if you can hear this. Let's see. Okay. That's blade play. Now, normally it's like, okay, well, you just tighten the pivot or you tighten some body screws, whatever the case might be. Mine, for whatever reason, this is the first knife in my entire career I can tighten that pivot down all the way. As a matter of fact, I can over-tighten that pivot, and I still have a tiny bit of blade play. I've never experienced this before in my knife life, in my knife collecting career. I have no idea what's going on with that, and so, you know, for me, it's something where I'm like, for $350 to $400 leaves me kind of cold. Now, here's the caveat that I was talking about. If you've ever interacted with Joseph Vero, if you've ever seen him interact with his fans on social media, great guy, extremely responsive. He's responded to my Facebook messages, and he's already offered to fix this knife for me. There's no doubt in my mind that if you got a Synapse XL, whatever, any knife from Vero that was less than perfect, they would take care of you and they would make it right? The only reason I haven't is because, honestly, I'm just lazy. I'm absolutely lazy. I just don't want to send this to them. It's not a knife that I carry all that much, so it's not something that's on the forefront of my mind when I think about, you know, do I want to get it fixed? But, you know, let it be known, they will take care of you, okay? So, yeah, other than that, it's very well put together, right? Aside from the things that I have some issues with, it is extremely well put together. It's an extremely unique knife. Again, there's nothing else that really looks like this out there. If there is, let me know by all means, because people probably want some alternatives to this. But, you know, for me as a nerd, it's a cool piece. Something about this, I don't know why, last thing I'll say, they did a very good job making a giant behemoth of a knife also look classy. It's got very clean lines. Nothing is too over the top here. The blade is big, but it's innocent, right? It's a gradual drop point, nice little swedge, lots of belly, big. It looks awesome. It just looks awesome, but not aggressive. They did a good job making it look classy, even though it was absolutely huge. Now, last but not least, will I be keeping the Vero Synapse XL? Well, when I said it was a good user and then I pointed out that I clearly haven't used it, there's a reason for that. You know, for me, this is just for me. You know, the issues that I happen to have with it, I've experienced this kind of thing before with higher end knives. And if I'm being honest, I just have to be honest with myself. I have to be honest with you. It always just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. You know, I could send this to Vero and they could make it perfect. And I still might not keep it because I'll always remember that I had to send it back to them. Don't let this turn you off. 99% of people love their Veros, and my God, this would absolutely be a keeper if I didn't have to think about the fact that I've got to fix it and I've got to do something about it, and there are tiny itty bitty things wrong with it, right? But if I'm being honest, a knife that's this expensive, if you're not using it and if you're not 100% sure that you're going to keep it, you're always going to be tempted to sell it and just get funds and put them towards a knife that you know that you're going to keep, right? Or at least gamble one more time and try to figure out if the next knife is the one you're going to keep. So for me, that's why I haven't put a lot of miles on this one. I don't carry it a lot. I don't use it a lot. It's because I don't know if it's going to stay in my collection. That being said, the fact that they're so hard to get a hold of and the fact that, in my opinion, they're so cool, those two things could be, just enough to make me keep it regardless of the issues that I happen to have with mine. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions about this knife or other knives that I may or may not have even touched, leave a comment in the comments section down below. I really do love engaging with you guys. I love the regulars. I love talking to everyone. By all means, chime in if you got something to say. But other than that, again, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.